Thank you so much, Arjun sir, for the nice words of introduction. Very good evening, respected everyone. After that, yet another flamboyant presentation by Dr. JJ sir. I am asked to talk about the cardiodiabetic milieu and the lipid target in Indians by my dear friend Dr. Mukut. We all understand that the heart diseases and the stroke contribute to probably 65% of deaths in patients of diabetes, and the disorders of different blood vessels, especially the cerebrovascular and the coronary vascular, the chances are up by around 2 to 4 times if the patient is having diabetes. And that's why the NCEP ATP3 clearly states that diabetes is a CAD equivalent. And if I may quote JJ sir's study of discovery study in India, and again I'm going to quote another study way back in 2006, if I'm not wrong, it says that the famous ABC of diabetes, the A1C, the blood pressure and the cholesterol target, are only achieved in around 18% of people. So with that preamble, I'm going to start with my topic proper. So these are the points based on which I would be sailing through the presentation. So first of all, if I talk about the prevalence, you can see the combination of diabetes, hypertension and dyslipidemia is present in 56% of patients, and the diabetes and dyslipidemia is present in around 16% of patients. If you combine that together, 3 out of 4 diabetics do suffer from dyslipidemia. And if we take clue from this 2010 ICMR INDIAB study, the final results quote that the 85.5% of men and 97.8% of women who are diabetic in India have concomitant dyslipidemia. This is supported by another study by Parikh et al. In 2010, which say that the males have 85.5% prevalence, and the females are unfortunately cursed with higher prevalence of dyslipidemia to the tune of 97.8%. And this suggests that there are more than 5.5 crore patients of diabetic dyslipidemia in India. And the triad is also known to all of us: high triglyceride, low HDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol is high, predominantly the small dense LDL cholesterol, and there is a postprandial lipemia. We all understand that the most common abnormality is the low HDL cholesterol, followed by high triglyceride and increase in LDL cholesterol. Again, I know we all have been looking at this particular slide time and again, but again, this is imperative to set the ball rolling. Because of insulin resistance, there is lipolysis from the fat cells, which give rise to more of free fatty acids, and the inhibitory effect of insulin on the hormone sensitive lipase is lost, so that the free fatty acid is converted to triglyceride and the ApoB containing particles, which are increase in VLDL. Then the triglyceride in VLDL is transferred to LDL and HDL by an enzyme called CETP. Thereby, there is a small dense LDL is created out of a large buoyant LDL particle. And at the same time, the HDL, the ApoA1, does get excreted by the kidney. We all understand that there is a common soil hypothesis which says, unlike the microvascular complications for which hyperglycemia is the sole harbinger, for macrovascular complication, atherosclerosis is the basic pathogenetic process, and instead of the atherosclerosis arising from the hyperglycemia, both of them have a common soil of origin, that is the insulin resistance, which can give rise to thrombosis, inflammation and vasoconstriction, promoting a state of atherogenesis. We have been referring to this INTERHEART study. You can see 9 factors, 3 lifestyle factors and 6 other factors like alcohol, hypertension, diabetes, abdominal obesity, psychosocial and lipids contribute to 90% of first MI risk worldwide, and lipids constitute the most, that is to the tune of 50%. What about contribution of diabetes? This study published in Diabetes Care way back in 1993, you can see on your left half, cutting across the baseline serum cholesterol, the men with diabetes and men without diabetes, when they are compared, the CV risk is heightened by 3 to 4 times as compared to dyslipidemia without diabetes. And again, there's a bit later on, we have another study, Circulation 2006, where they have taken both the genders. In men and in women, you can see the diabetes is associated with 2.5 to 3.5 higher chances of occurrence of cardiovascular disease. Now let us look at the individual targets that we try to reduce. LDL comes first because 1 milligram per deciliter increase in LDL is associated with 1% increase in CV risk. And statins reduce CV risk in both in primary and secondary prevention. Again, this is not new to any one of us. We have in both in primary prevention and secondary prevention, you can see the statins are associated with significant reduction in coronary heart disease event. But apart from that, you can see, just JJ was rightly telling us that this is the most probably the easiest parameter to control, but somehow the optimal lowering of LDL cholesterol is not achieved within 2 years in over half of the patients in general population that you can see the numbers initiated on statin therapy. So we need to work more. And again, there is this another study in 2013 says that the failure of goal attainment does happen in 30 to 40% of patients even after titration with statin. And again, there is one more hypothesis probably which has given rise to higher usage of this particular NPC1L1 inhibitor, which is the intestinal cholesterol absorber. So this is the one which is getting expressed in a higher amount in diabetes. So we are trying to block it by giving ezetimibe. So what after statin, what are the options? For ezetimibe, unfortunately, SHARP showed 17% non-significant reduction. Improve it showed 6% significant risk reduction in the fenofibrate. Overall, the field and record and the niacin, the HPS2 Thrivent, they all have not shown significant risk reduction. Then can the PCSK9 inhibitor, I'm not going to tell you about the mechanism of action, but you can see these are the monoclonal antibodies, the alirocumab as elucidated by the Odyssey trial, the evolocumab, the Fourier and the OSLA studies. This is a subcutaneous injectable preparation once in 2 to 4 weeks is associated with around 70% of LDL cholesterol reduction, but it does come with a big price tag. And what about triglyceride and CV risk? You can see these are the two studies, Circulation 2011 and Lipids in Health and Disease 2013. You can see as the triglyceride is jumping up from less than 90 to more than 200, there is an incremental chances of CVD mortality on the study projected on your left. And there is also an increase in total mortality as the lipids go up. So this again, this is a study in 2005 published in Journal of American College of Cardiology. And the most significant factor is that triglyceride more than 200 in combination with less than 400, it is the most significant risk factor associated with increase in occurrence of coronary heart disease. So how do we treat that? Yes, all patients of hypertriglyceridemia should be evaluated for ASCVD risk. Maintain TG less than 150 and adequate glycemic control in diabetes is paramount. If it is between 150 to 500, consider statin plus ezetimibe. First priority is the achievement of LDL cholesterol target to reduce the ASCVD risk. But if the TG remains more than 200 milligram, we have to calculate the non-HDL cholesterol and a non-statin drug has to be used. And for those with ASCVD or diabetes and multiple risk factors, the icosapentaethyl can be considered in those with triglyceride of 150 or higher to provide further risk reduction. But if it is more than equal to 500, yes, we all understand that the non-statin drug, especially the fenofibrate, is important. Again, other non-statin drugs, the omega-3 fatty acids, but with the advent of recent studies, the icosapentaethyl in dose of 4 grams per day is really wonderful. And this meta-analysis has clearly told us, published in NEJM 2010, those group of people having triglyceride more than 200 and HDL less than 34, if you treat them, there is going to be a significant 35% reduction in the CV risk. But then low HDL cholesterol is associated with CV risk in several of the epidemiological studies. But what about the drugs like the CETP inhibitors, the trapibs, the torcetrapib, dalcetrapib, evacetrapib, and the anacetrapib? All of them are associated with 35 to 40% increase in HDL, but there is no reduction in CV event. So that's why probably it is in the back burner. But again, the non-HDL cholesterol is something which is coming back in a big way. You can see when triglyceride is between 200 to 500, the non-HDL cholesterol is a very important calculation. And you can see it is either as good as LDL cholesterol or better than LDL cholesterol in terms of CV risk reduction as per the several studies. But looking at the guidelines, these are the societies, the NLA, NICE, International Atherosclerosis Society have not talked about it. Sorry, I have projected the AACE unknowingly, but the LAI, the NCEP, ATP3, they are very clear in recommending the non-HDL cholesterol, and they say that if triglyceride is 200 to 499, the non-HDL cholesterol is a secondary target with a goal of 30 milligram higher than the identified LDL cholesterol. But the Lipid Association of India, which is very relevant to us Indians, says that non-HDL cholesterol is a co-primary target, especially in Indians, because we have significant occurrence of higher triglyceride, obesity, and metabolic syndrome. So lastly, I would take another 5 minutes to take you through some of the guideline recommendations. There is a bit of difference between these guidelines that I'm going to talk about. The AHA 2018 says that in adults who are 20 years of age or older and not on lipid lowering therapy, either of fasting or non-fasting plasma lipid is effective in estimating ASCVD risk and documenting baseline LDL cholesterol. But if non-fasting triglyceride is more than equal to 400, a lipid fasting profile has to be repeated. What about the Canadians? They also are in favor of the non-fasting lipid and lipoprotein testing, but they say with regards to the screening of dyslipidemia, the age of onset and the recommendations do not differ between the diabetics and the non-diabetics. And compared to a fasting lipid value, there will be minimal change with non-HDL cholesterol, slight decrease in LDL cholesterol, and small increase in triglyceride. And we all understand that in patients having diabetes, it is being recommended as an important target by the several guidelines. So briefly, to take you through the 2021 ADA, what does it say? When do we need to test it? At the time of diabetes diagnosis, an initial medical evaluation, and every 5 years thereafter, if under the age of 40 years or more frequently if indicated. But if the patient is on a statin or other lipid lowering therapy, 4 to 12 weeks after initiation or change in dose, the lipid profile has to be monitored and annually thereafter. And if the patient is having triglyceride more than 150 with low HDL, initiate lifestyle therapy and optimize glycemic control in this subgroup of patients. And what about the treatment? These are, I'm going to read out them because it is clearly mentioned in the guidelines. More than 40 years without ASCVD, moderate intensity statin therapy. 20 to 39 years with diabetes, having additional atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk factor, initiate statin therapy. But those with multiple risk factor or age 50 to 75, you have to go for high intensity statin therapy. And you can see if the patient is having diabetes with 10 years ASCVD risk more than 20%, equal to 20%, ezetimibe to maximally has to be added to maximally tolerated statin therapy to reduce LDL cholesterol by 50% or more. When we talk about secondary prevention, for all of them, high intensity statin is the way. For patients having ASCVD, consider very high risk using specific criteria. If LDL cholesterol is more than equal to 70, maximum tolerated statin dose, ezetimibe might also be a secondary addition to statins because of the low cost. And in adults with diabetes age more than 75 years already on statin, do continue. And if he's not on a statin, you can start away with the statin. And what about the AACE? They also have, you can see more than 500 milligram of triglyceride, you need to add non-statin therapy. But then most of the patients require statin therapy. It doesn't differ much with that of the ADA. But here you can see the non-HDL cholesterol, desirable level, and in moderate risk patients who have diabetes with no major risk and or age less than 40, the LDL should be less than 100, non-HDL should be less than 130, triglyceride should be less than 150. But if the patient is high risk where diabetes with major CVD risk factors like hypertension, family history, low HDL smoking or CVD, the targets are a bit lower, LDL less than 70, non-HDL less than 100, and TG less than 150. ESC 2019, they basically talk about the reduction which has to be more than equal to 50% baseline, and it has to be started with statin, upscale the dose to highest level, and then you can add ezetimibe. If not, you can think of non-ezetimibe, non-statin therapy, the PCSK9 inhibitors. ACCHA It states that in patients having 40 to 75 years age with diabetes, LDL more than equal to 70, moderate intensity statin therapy without even calculating 10-year ASCVD risk. So I would lastly take another 2 to 3 minutes to talk about the Lipid Association of India guideline, because it is very much India specific and it has something new to this guideline. And you can see, I'm not going to read out in total, it is freely available. You can see they have divided the risk factors into major ASCVD risk factors, moderate risk non-conventional risk factor, and other high risk features. And based on these features, they had divided the patients into low risk, moderate risk, high risk, very high risk. Then something which is new is the extreme risk, which is the category A, where there is coronary artery disease more than equal to one feature of high risk group. Category B is CAD with more than equal to one feature of very high risk group or recurrent ACS despite LDL cholesterol less than 50 milligram per deciliter. And for the first time, you can see we are witnessing a LDL cholesterol target of less than equal to 30 in this category B group. And the category A extreme risk group is less than 50. So very high risk less than 50 again, and the high risk less than 70, moderate risk less than 100, low risk less than 100. And non-HDL cholesterol, you have to go on adding 30 to each of the parameters. So here is one such guideline which is asking us to be very much aggressive in getting the LDL cholesterol to below 30 in said group of population. So that basically brings to the conclusion slide. This is not something new. This is the repetition of what we all know. And the Steno study, which has been repeatedly there too by highlighted by rather Dr. JJ sir, we are not only supposed to take care of the sugars, but also the blood pressure, the cholesterol, target LDL in most of the cases less than 100. You can go for less than 70, and non-HDL you have to add 30 to this. And HDL is more than 40 for men and more than 50 for women, triglyceride less than 150, and only if the triglyceride is more than 100, you have to start adding a non-statin drug primarily to reduce the triglyceride. That brings to the end of my presentation. Thanks to the organizers for giving this opportunity